So today we're going to continue where we left off on Sunday with Anarthas. Discussing the subject of Anarthas is very important because the Anarthas, if we don't conquer the Anarthas, we cannot progress past the stage of Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti means regulated devotional service according to the rules of the scriptures. And Raganuga Bhakti means spontaneous devotional service. What's that? Oh, the gas truck. So spontaneous devotional service requires that we are pure, that we don't have any offenses, and that we are free from various defects called anartha. Anarthas means that which leads to bad fortune. Artha means wealth. Anartha means the opposite. So we have to get rid of our anarthas, or inauspicious characteristics, in order to advance beyond the neophyte stage of devotional service. Otherwise, there's no way that we can get beyond that. So we went into this on Sunday, and actually 2 weeks before last Sunday, but we didn't get very far. There's lots of anarthas. Huh? So up until now we've covered Svarupa Brahma. Brahma means illusion, and Svarupa means our constitutional position, our real spiritual identity. So we covered the four kinds of Svarupa Brahma, and then we began to discuss the next category of anarthas, which is called Asat-tṛṣṇā. Asat means that which is temporary. Asat, or illusory, because sat means truth. Asat means illusion, or a lie. And tṛṣṇā means a thirst or desire. So when we have a desire for that which is non-eternal, in other words, the material world and its qualities and activities, then we have this anartha called Asat-tṛṣṇā. And there are four kinds of Asat-tṛṣṇā. One is varieties of desires for material enjoyment in this world. And this is probably by far the most common anartha of all. People get conditioned by material enjoyment, and then they, because the senses are always crying out for enjoyment. Let me enjoy this, let me enjoy that, give me this, give me that. If you put a small child in a candy store, they'll just eat themselves until they're sick. They'll just, fill up on candy and they have no idea when to stop. So this material world is like the candy in the candy store. And if we just allow our senses to dictate our engagement, our activities in this world, then we'll certainly suffer from the disease of Asat-tṛṣṇā. And we've gone into this, I don't know how many times, how that which is temporary does not even really exist. Can't be said to really exist because it has no independent existence. It depends on some previous cause. It depends on some conditions. And when those conditions don't apply anymore, then it disappears. Just like when you have plenty of rain, the grass grows very nicely. But then if there's a drought, the grass simply dries up, and if it stays without water for long enough, it will simply blow away, turn to dust in the wind. So we have to be very careful that the things that we desire to enjoy are spiritual, eternal things. That we have a desire for that which will not go away, that which will not disappoint us, that which is perfect. And that's the spiritual world, the world of Sat, eternality. So we've gone over this, I don't know how many times. This is one of the basic principles of spiritual life. but it's amazing to me how many devotees go for 20, 30 years chanting Hare Krishna, and they still don't get beyond this anartha. And I think this is because they are not cultivating spiritual enjoyment. They're not cultivating bliss. They're not cultivating their rasa with Krishna. Instead, they're trying to fill this gap. They're trying to fill the need for enjoyment with material enjoyment. But of course, we know material enjoyment is not good for the soul, because this material world is fundamentally different from the soul. So I'm not going to go over all this again. We've gone over it 1,000 times. Now the next Asat-tṛṣṇā anartha is desires for enjoyment in the higher planetary systems of Svargaloka. Svarga means heaven. Heavenly planets are very wonderful. They're full of all kinds of material enjoyment. Opulence, sex life, pride, good qualities of every description, even yogic and mystical powers, up to the power of Brahma to create a whole universe from the material elements emanated by Narayana. So all of these things are also stumbling blocks, especially for so-called religious people. Well, religion actually aims at attaining Svarga. It actually aims at attaining heaven. Religion is more or less material. Because the benefits of religion are temporary. The heavenly planets are temporary. They're created in the beginning of the universe. They exist until the end of the universe, and then they're dissolved. In fact, even some of the pralayas, the heavier pralayas or devastations between ages, and like between the manus, also destroy even the heavenly planets. Then they have to be recreated again afterwards. So these heavenly planets are not eternal, and no one can stay there eternally either. So according to your good karma, according to your previous work, you may get to stay there for some time, maybe even a very long time. But it always comes to an end. And you have to come right back to this same old planet Earth and face the same challenges and the same issues all over again. So we should not try to solve our problems by going to heaven. We should try to solve our problems by going to the spiritual world where nobody ever comes back again. That's the right solution. That's the eternal solution. And when we reach this spiritual consciousness, this spiritual existence, then we know, because our existence is in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the opulence of the spiritual world makes the opulence of the heavenly planets look like nothing. So we don't want to go to the heavenly planets. In fact, if we get the opportunity, we reject it. Why? Because it's not possible to make spiritual advancement on the heavenly planets. There's too much enjoyment. Too much, like it would be like trying to chant your rounds at a party where everybody is enjoying sense gratification. How can you do that? In the hellish planets, there's so much suffering that you can't make spiritual advancement. But in the heavenly planets, there's too much enjoyment. It's a constant distraction, and you can't really make a significant advancement there. The best place is the planetary system, the earthly planets, because there's not enough enjoyment, or not too much enjoyment, and not too much suffering. It's right in the middle, a little bit of both. So it's better to stay here and be a devotee and make steady spiritual progress than to go to the heavenly planets and then be inundated with so much sense gratification that you don't have time for spiritual life. Okay, and the third kind of Asat-tṛṣṇā is desires for the attainment of the 8 mystic siddhis and the 9 divine jewels of Kuvera. So these are heavenly opulences. Mystic siddhis are like the ability to become larger than the largest, smaller than the smallest. Different kinds of mystic powers like mind reading and telekinesis and stuff like this. The different yogic powers like manima, prapti, siddhis, where you can take things from far away. You can reach and take anything you want from anywhere. So these are very nice. They give all kinds of temporary enjoyment, but just like being in the heavenly planets, these exercise of these powers uses up our past pious activities, our good karma. And when that karma is exhausted, guess what happens? We lose the mystic powers. And we become an ordinary human being. And then by that time, after using all those mystic powers, oh boy, we've got some real enemies. So watch out for mystic powers. They're a trap.